Hey guys, Toast here. Welcome to part 2 of this Planetside Beginner's Guide. If you haven't yet watched part 1, please go do so, as this will pick up right where part 1 left off. A couple things that were mentioned in part 1 that I just want to mention again in part 2. When it comes to factions, for the most part, it's safe to assume that unless specifically addressed, something shown for one faction would be applicable to all other factions. This guide also assumes that you do not have any experience playing Planetside 1, as some of the things discussed are similar to that game. And finally, this guide was designed on PC and specifically for the PC version. However, the vast majority of the topics covered will also apply to the PlayStation 4 version, and should one ever exist, an Xbox One version. Now that you have an understanding of all of the menu options, classes, and important resources in the game, let's talk about the base gameplay. Your ultimate goal is to secure bases for your team, and do so by capturing up to 3 points at each base and holding them until the base has been turned over to your faction. There are a handful of simple single-point bases in which a single squad can easily capture, and then there are also significantly more complicated bases with multiple capture points and barrier shields that need to be taken down that will require significantly more coordination from a larger group of people. Your ability to play the objective, coordinate with your team, and listen to instructions will be very important, especially when first starting out. It's time to decide if you wish to stay on Kultir or move on to one of the other 4 continents in the game. Kultir is not normally heavily populated, and is a good place to spend a little bit of time if you want to continue to get a feel for the controls or mechanics. If, however, you want to start the actual experience of the game, then you'll want to move on to one of the other continents. By pressing the U key on PC, you'll redeploy, which will take 10 seconds, and will kill you without giving you a death to your stats. Any damage taken will reset the counter, so you'll need to be in a safe place to do so. From there, you can select the warp gate of another continent in the menu to the left of your map screen. Should you decide it's now time to jump into the full game, here are some tips you'll want to try to follow in order to have a positive playing experience. First off, before making the decision of which continent to go to, it may be a good idea to find yourself a squad or platoon to team up with. Playing Planetside 2 alone is honestly rarely a good idea, since you'll be heavily depending on your teammates for support and just sheer numbers. Squads are a cohesive team of up to 12 players total. Platoons are 4 squads that have been combined into one cohesive unit. By going to your main menu and selecting the Social tab, you'll be presented with the Squads menu. This is the list of all available squads to join. You'll sometimes see a colored text to the left of the squad name saying either Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, or Delta. If you see this, this means that that particular squad is part of a larger platoon. You may also see a 3 or 4 character marker to the right of the squad name. This is an indicator of whether the squad or platoon is part of an organized outfit. There are benefits to joining both individual squads and platoons. Individual squads will allow you a bit more communication with your squad mates and allow you to perhaps have a more weighted say in what your squad will choose to do. If you choose to join a larger platoon, on the other hand, you're going to be a part of something significantly larger than yourself. Because of this, you're more likely to be given specific orders and expected to follow them. You're also less likely to want to make use of the platoon and squad chats, because they're generally reserved for tactical communications. If you want a more personalized, smaller battle experience, individual squads may be the better option. If, however, you want more large-scale, massive battles with structure, platoons may be your better option. I personally prefer the bigger platoons, as they provide me with more of the type of gameplay that I can't find in other games. Once you've joined a squad or platoon, you'll see an option on your map screen to do a squad deploy. This will take you to the continent in which the majority of your squad or platoon are located and spawn you with, or at least near them. Regardless of whether you choose a small squad or a large platoon, there are a couple of vehicles that you'll want to familiarize yourself with in order to both help you and your teammates. The first is the Sunderer. This is a squad land transportation vehicle. It's a 12-man vehicle capable of transporting your teammates to any given location. It's equipped with 2 gunner seats that can be customized and can be spawned from a vast majority of bases in each continent. The Sunderer can also be deployed by pressing the B key by default on PC, which will anchor the vehicle in place, but also open up a supply panel on one side, allowing your teammates to resupply their current loadout or even change loadouts. Sunderers can only be deployed within a certain proximity of other deployed Sunderers, but the other major benefit of doing so is that it'll create a mobile spawn point for your team that, when viewed on the map, will look like a small green pillbug icon, as well as appear on the list of spawns to the left. The other important vehicle I want to touch on is the Galaxy. This is essentially the flying version of the Sunderer. It can hold up to 12 players and is equipped with a primary gunner, 2 secondary side gunners, as well as a tail gunner. It's a very heavily armored vehicle and will also act as a mobile spawn point for your squad. They're frequently used by large platoons as a means of doing air-to-ground assault, loading a galaxy for each squad to try and take a base, and drop a large number of foot soldiers to try and take a specific objective. From here, you should have the basic tools needed in order to start to get yourself into the type of gameplay in Planetside 2 that players are meant to experience. You should have an understanding of the classes, basic mechanics, and how to play with others, but there's still a ton to learn about this game, and even I still have a lot to learn about it, but this will all come with time. The final thing I want to discuss are just some random tips and things to keep in mind when playing this game to help you better succeed. First of all, weapons and upgrades in the game can be purchased with a currency called certification points. These are the points that you earn in-game by performing any action that gives you XP, regardless of whether it's killing, healing, providing ammo, damaging vehicles, etc. 250 XP will net you 1 certification point, which are commonly referred to as certs. There are also cosmetic upgrades to all weapons, characters, and vehicles, however these will require you to purchase Daybreak cash. The 2 classes that will tend to get you the most experience in the early game, and in turn the most certification points early on, will be the Medic and the Engineer class. This is due to the fact that these 2 can not only be used to kill players, but they can also gain massive experience from healing, reviving, throwing down ammo, and repairing friendly max units and vehicles. These are the 2 classes that I would recommend starting with if you want to be able to get yourself some upgrades early on. Weapons, attachments, and vehicle upgrades can be pricey, but Planetside 2 has given you an option to try before you buy. Head back to the warp gate and you'll see a terminal inside that has a globe on it. Use that terminal and you can go to your faction's VR or virtual reality training. Here you can try before you buy, so you don't have to worry about spending a hefty amount of certs on a weapon only to find that you don't really like using it. Remember that anything purchased with certification points are faction specific, where anything purchased with Daybreak cash will carry between factions if available for each faction. This means that weapons like the nanite system weapons, which are available for all factions, can be shared if purchased with Daybreak cash. You can still purchase them with certification points, but remember that the weapon will only be usable on the faction that you purchased it with. If you die, you have the option of going straight into your menu and trying to find a new spawn point, or waiting upwards of 25 seconds to be revived by teammates. If you're playing with others, which you should be, then it may be more advantageous to try and wait out the timer to see if you get a revive. A lot of Planetside 2 players are veterans and understand how to play the classes, so the likelihood of getting a revive is actually pretty good if you have friendly teammates near you. Players in Planetside can be extremely helpful. If you have a question, don't hesitate to ask in the chat box or over voice chat, assuming you're not cutting off another person. You're actually pretty likely to have someone help you out instead of calling you a noob and telling you to look it up. If you have a mic, have it ready to go, but don't use it extensively. Communication is key to Planetside 2, but knowing what and when to communicate is almost more important. If you're taking part in a large assault, don't constantly call out the location of single enemies. However, if you see a strategic enemy spawn point that needs to be taken out, alert your team to it. Remember that you have proximity chat, squad chat, and platoon chat all available, so try to use the appropriate channels for the appropriate callouts. Planetside 2 is a pretty beefy game in terms of performance. It's very heavily CPU dependent since you have so many players and bullets to track, so try to reduce your processes running in the background so that the game can use as much of your CPU as is available. Also, don't be afraid to turn down the graphical settings. While you may lose a little bit of the eye candy, the game will be no less fun if it doesn't look as sparkly. For reference, I have an i7-5820K and a GTX 980 Ti with 16 gigs of DDR4 RAM, and I can run the game usually over 60 frames per second at most times. However, in bigger battles with 100 or more players, it will at times drop to the mid-40s, especially if there are a lot of vehicles or explosions going on. Finally, the biggest and most important tip for the game: have fun. Planetside 2 is a really fun game, and as long as you learn the basics I've covered and get a feel for how the game mechanics work, you're likely to have a pretty good time playing it. But that's going to do it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know in the comments if you feel better equipped to jump into Planetside 2 now, and if you've chosen to do so, if you're enjoying it. If you liked the video, please leave a like, and if you want to see more content, please subscribe. Thank you guys so much for watching. This is Toast, and I'll talk to you soon.